All right, good evening. I'm Larry Clark. I am the chair of the City of Shreveport Capital Improvements Committee. We welcome you to our fourth of our community meetings that we have had. And so we are looking forward to hearing from you this evening. Let me begin with introductions of people that are here, and I'm going to ask members of the committee, why don't we start down here? Lauer, come on up here while he gets seated. We'll start down on the far right and just come on across and introduce yourself to the members. And where's that hand mic? Bring that up here if you will, and we'll pass that down to our members so that I think they all can project well, but that way we make sure that everyone can hear who they are. So we'll start across. Thank you.
My name is Cedric Choice, appointed by the mayor.
Hillary Woolley, appointed by the mayor.
Jacqueline Sabbath, representing District A.
Rudolph Glass, District A.
Michael Lafitte, District E.
Terry Moore, appointed by the mayor.
Christopher Coe, District B.
Good evening, Steve Martin, District E.
Louis Avalone, District C.
Good evening, R.J. Johnson, District G.
Thank you. So you can see that the committee is made up of people from all across the city, and also there are appointees of the mayor. So each city council person selected two individuals to be on this committee, so you know how we got onto the committee. And then Mayor Arsenault named 6 persons, one being me, to be on the committee as well. So that's who make up the committee in front of you. We also have with us Mr. Tom Dark, who is the Chief Administrative Officer, and he has city administrative leaders with him for the administrative team, and he'll mention them when he speaks in just a moment. Mayor Arsenault created the Capital Improvements Committee. As I just said, council members appointed. So over 2/3 of the committee members were appointed by city council members. And I want to thank and applaud the members of the Shreveport City Council for the quality and diversity of the people put forward for the Capital Improvements Committee. Along with Mayor Arsenault's people, the committee is an exceptionally talented, dedicated group of citizens. Mayor Arsenault has strongly communicated to the committee of the importance of the City Council in relation to our work. We understand the City Council has the final word on whether to call a bond election and the composition of any bond package. We are committed to bringing forward a strong, focused community plan for bond improvement election this coming spring. And let me also mention, and I think you probably have recognized Mayor Arsenault. He's here in the audience. He is attending. This is the 4th one that he's been to, and he is choosing not to speak because he wants to hear from you as we will. And so I just want to make sure you know that he's in the audience. And I don't believe a city council member. I don't see any here. Am I missing anyone? Okay. So thank you for being here. Now, let me introduce to you Mr. Tom Dark, Chief Administrative Officer, City of Shreveport.
Good evening, everybody. I also want to recognize former Mayor Keith Hightower, one of my former bosses, out in the audience. If you want to think anything about the importance of a bond issue, you are in a building that was built by one. This was not here before the citizens at some point voted to say we'd like to do this, and it was done. And if you get a chance, walk around. There's a lot of good stuff in this building. When we talk about bond issues, a bond issue is kind of like a mortgage. In effect, the city is being, when you think about a bond issue, you're thinking about something, the city's going to go borrow money, it's going to pay it back over 30 years, just like you would if you were buying a house. But it's in the same way, it's you're buying things you can't afford to pay for with cash. You're buying things that are good for the community, but they're investments. They're not something that you just buy, just with whatever the cash is in your pocket right now. But when a bond issue is paid for, normally it is paid for by property taxes that everybody has to pay. And because of that, bond issues like this don't happen without a vote of the people. And so that's why we're talking to you, because at some point, hopefully next April, this is going to go to the voters and with whatever ends up as the final product. And if things pass, then their property taxes will change over a period of about the next 4 or 5 years. They'll go up a little bit to pay for this stuff. We won't sell all the bonds at one time because you just don't do it that way. So there'll be some property tax increase, and however large this is, that'll be explained then. But it won't all be at once. It'll happen over a period of probably 3 or 4 years. One of the things we wanted to try to tell you is that there's a difference between what you pay for with bond issues and what you pay for with maintenance money. If there's a pothole in front of your street, then the maintenance people pay for that. If there's a water leak in front of your house, or the drainage ditch behind your house needs cleaning, those are maintenance things. And one of the things that we tried to do with these meetings is to bring people here from the various city departments so that if you had a concern about something else, they're here. I mean, we have the Director of Public Works, the Director of SPAR, the Police Chief, the Director of Water and Sewer. We also have Councilman Gary Brooks walking in the building. Welcome, Councilman. But if you have a question about some maintenance-related thing, do not let them get away before you ask that question. I mean, we'll take it here, but mostly what we're looking for is input on things we want to build, on things, you want to build something that's not here already, or you want to do something, a major reconstruction of a street or something like that. That's what we're talking about here. But this building is a wonderful example of what can be done. When you start with nothing and you build this kind of facility, that's what a community investment looks like. It's good for the neighborhood. It's good for the community. Just also understand that there's always a lot of needs, always a lot more than can get funded. But one of the reasons it's kind of that way now is that the last 2 times the city has tried to do bond issues, in 2019 and 2021, they had a total of 8 propositions on the ballot. Only one of them has passed. That was for public safety in 2021. We are trying to do better. And one of the ways of trying to do better is to try to listen as much as we can to what people want. And that this is the 4th one of these. We've probably heard 30 different, folks come and talk. Some of them had one suggestion, and one gentleman the other night at Huntington High had about 15, and that was good to hear. But we want to hear from you. You'll have, this is a small enough room. We'll give you, a reasonable amount of time to get what you want to say. But thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Dark, and we're pleased to have you all ready to be able to start talking. And Mr. Dark said we started out, we're going to allow 3 minutes for people to speak. That's roughly what we're going to go by. But again, if there's a need for us to stop the clock, so to speak, because there's questions that you've asked us, or if you have something you need to be talking about, we don't have so many people here tonight that we can't try to get the opportunity for you to say what it is that you want to talk about, because we want to hear that. When you came in tonight, you had the opportunity to pick up a list of projects, and you will see if you looked at it that it comes to almost $250 million. That is not the amount of the bond issue that it's going to be. What we asked for the committee of the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Dark, was to come forward with those things that would be priorities for the city, knowing that we were going to have to cut them back. We wanted to be able to hear from the community. We wanted to be able to, for ourselves, to assess that. Again, we're going to have a bus trip. What we see in part will be by what you tell us tonight, will be things that we'll prioritize in terms of what we try to see. But there will not be a possible way for us to cover everything that's on here, and there have been more things that have come up at the prior 3 meetings to go on to the list. And so again, this is a working list. You shouldn't take it to say if you don't see something that it won't happen, because we have not attempted to add on from what we heard, for example, at Southern University or at LSUS or at Huntington High, because it would just work against the purpose of the list. The list was to come to all 4 of the same list, but it's a list that's changing. So again, this is something just to see for ideas. All right, who would like to come forward to talk to us first this evening? I welcome you to come forward. We don't have a standing mic, but we have a revolving mic. So first person would like to speak. And if you will, identify yourself and talk to us about what's on your mind. Who would like to go first? Thank you. We always need to have someone start it for us, so thank you for doing so.
Thank you. You going to hold it, or you want me to? You can hold. Okay, fine. Yes, thank you, members of the committee, for your service. My name is Frank Farrell. My wife Susan and I are here tonight principally to express our concern over the status of the city of Shreveport's water supply. I know you all remember what happened when we had the Snowmageddon in February of 20 or 21? And we all lost water. We lost water for 7 days. We all know what happened in Flint, Michigan. We know what happened in Jackson, Mississippi a year ago in September when basically the water stopped flowing from their taps. And it's an immediate crisis. There are a lot of things on this, I know. There are important things: streets, drainage, public safety, parks, public buildings. But water is a critical resource that you cannot live your daily life without. And if a crisis occurs, and when a crisis occurs, everything comes to a halt, whether you've got smooth roads or you've got potholes in your roads. So our reason for being here is we love Shreveport. We don't want to have to leave. I'm retired now, and we want to stay here. But if the water supply becomes so tenuous that we can't, we will pull up stakes. So if, as Dr. Clark said, there are things that have to be cut back on this. If you can't do it all, please don't cut back the water. Think about how much you use it when you go home every day and what this city would be if we wind up like Jackson or Flint. And so that's our concern for being here, to emphasize that point, is the critical importance of water. And I know that there's intake structures that need to be repaired and valves that need to be repaired. I'd kind of like to know, as far as a question, is if some of these structures fail, what is the immediate response? What is the backup plan? I mean, one of the intake structures in Cross Lake, I understand, is not working. We're down to one. What happens if that one quits? Is there an immediate plan to repair those? Just a question, and things we need to think about. Our system's so fragile. What's going to happen if something blows up?
Let me do this. Since it is on here as one of the items, I'm going to turn it back into a bond proposition matter and ask Mr. Dart if you will give us a
And actually, this is one of the times, we haven't done this in most of these meetings. We normally don't call department heads up, but either Mr. Daniel or Mr. Sneed from Water and Sewer might want to just, Lyman, if you'll just take one of them the mic and let them understand it. Most of the things they're working on they have redundant stuff out there. The intake is the one that is probably the most tenuous, and that's one Mr. Daniel might be able to talk to you about.
Well, you're exactly right, Tom. The intake structure is a source of concern. We have a backup plan if it fails, but it's not nearly as good as having the intake structure. But we will be able to supply water even if the intake structure completely 100% fails. So we're not going to be Jackson, Mississippi, I can assure you of that. We have some very major infrastructure needs. There's no question. Most of our water distribution system is well past its normal operating life, and any kind of extreme weather event, be it cold or drought, is going to have a tremendous effect on our delivery system. But we have very competent crews that are out fixing pipe all day long. But it's discouraging, that we fix a piece of pipe and then we go down 30 feet and we fix the same piece of pipe, and then we go down 50 feet and we fix another break there, when we could be replacing these pipes and being much more efficient with the use of our money. But I can assure you we will never be Jackson, Mississippi. I mean, I have a pretty clear understanding what happened there. We are not anywhere even bordering that, but we do have some very serious infrastructure issues that we need to address.
Thank you for helping. Again, I think it's important for us to exchange information and then concerns as well. So there's on here also 2 elevated storage tanks, in part because the water pressure is not at the level that it ideally should be when you have those, the drought and have some of the weather issues as well. So those are also on here for the list for us to be considering. Thank you for your question. Next question, please. Up in front. Good evening. We look forward to your question.
Hi,
Hi, my name is Rachel Jackson. I'm actually the president of the Stony Hill Association neighborhood over here in Stony Hill.
Good.
What my concern is, like, we have several concerns, but the one I just want to address is the water park that's supposed to be here was actually promised years ago to be here at Valencia's park right here. Now, the last update that I did get was given to me was that it was, I guess it was on the books to be done, but what my question is, we don't want to go another year and not have it there. Because we've been waiting, and that's one of the attractions for the children to come to the park. So we want to make sure we keep things going in our community where we can have a thriving community and not something that's keep taken away. But the concern is, we don't want to go another year. It's going to be winter, and we still don't have that water park.
Okay. So it's a swimming pool you're looking to have, is that correct?
No, it's not a swimming pool. It's supposed to be a
The sprayer.
sprinkler. The sprayer, yes.
The sprayers, okay. Shelley, do you want to?
Ms. Jackson and I have talked several times. That funding came from the state. When we first bid it, there was not enough money. Your state senator at the time, Mr. Peacock, did get more funding, which we got this year. We rebid, the bids have come back, they're within bid. We've ordered their equipment, and as soon as it gets here, they'll start installation. So I can see if I can get an update on when the equipment will be here, but we have ordered it, and we will be, my hope and desire is for us to be operating next summer.
There you go. Some good news. Some good news. Okay, very good. Next person to speak to us, please.
Mike O'Connor, I'm with the Broadmoor Neighborhood Association. One of the things that's come up in our meetings is looking at the rec center and therapeutic recreational facilities at AC Steer. And we've been told over and over again at our group that when that land was donated, it was with the caveat that no additional buildings be placed there, that it stay green space.
So let me help to address that, because I think what you're looking for is retention of green space besides whether or not legally or not. You'd rather not have the green space be taken up by a building, I assume.
From what I
Regardless,
understand,
and so whether or not it could even be possible.
the deed on the gift to the city was that there be no
Right.
taking away of green space.
So I don't know if we have the answer specifically to that, but I think there is some work that's being done by Mr. Dark and by SPAR as to what will happen. And I think, let me turn, I've said to you that we haven't amended the list as we've gone along. There haven't been final decisions made on adjustments on SPAR, but there's some thinking that perhaps you need to hear.
Mr. O'Connor, we've had a number of comments, both from the therapeutic folks and from the Broadmoor folks. The likelihood is by the time this gets to be a real project and a real list, we will be doing something other than building something at AC Steer.
Thank you. I have one other.
One of the things you try to do when you're putting together a bond package is you try to listen to what people tell you. And what people have told us in various places is that the therapeutic folks want to stay at Princess Park, and the Broadmoor folks want the green space to stay. And at that point, you say, well, we need to back up and try something else. So we hadn't got it all figured out yet, but the likelihood is that that's where this will be going.
Thank you. I did have one
So
other
it may
question.
be that you would like to know the answer to the legal question at some point otherwise. That's why I wanted him to come forward, because I think that the biggest concern you have at the moment, undoubtedly, he's taken care of for you. Next item that you have, sir.
The tennis upgrades and pickleball courts.
Okay.
Where?
Excuse me. As you know, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America right now. So we're trying to meet those needs, but you'll have some at Bill Cockrell's, some new courts, so that they have plenty there to do tournaments that bring, crowds to our city. We'll be doing, AC Steer will have a new tennis court. If you've been out there, it's in deplorable condition. We tried to do some fix to it. We have a tree that's grown. We just need to replace it. I'm trying to think of all of them. Mamie Hicks has 2 courts. Their community has asked for one of those to be pickleball and one of those to be tennis, so we'll resurface there. Corby's will have some pickleball. They don't have any pickleball right now. They've taken the junior courts and done a little bit. So there's a list of them all over the city that where we would do pickleball. Southern Hills and will have the most because we already have a lot of existing courts there. But we will do those kind of scattered throughout the city, trying to
Sir,
address people's
any further
desire.
questions, sir? And we thank you for coming from the Broadmoor Association. We're pleased that you would come here this evening. Next person to speak to us, please. Next person. If you want to ask a question about the process in any way, we'll be glad to do that as well. Yes.
Hi, my name is Misha Farrell. I'm one of your local architects, and I just actually want to make more of a statement. I'm so happy to see so many of these new buildings as possibilities for our city. Our city is identified by our buildings, and there's one thing that could be improved from the city level, and that is if you have the opportunity to ask for our local talent, our local architects to design a project, put that out instead of designing it within the city. That would be a benefit to us economically, and it would improve the character of our city. I just traveled, and I was so surprised that in Amarillo, Texas, people were talking about Scyport in Shreveport, about how much they enjoyed it, because when they traveled through town. Just to let you know. So thank you again, committee, for everything that you're doing here. And again, I just want to implore the city to please put out requests for proposals for architects for all of your projects. I think you have an incredible group of talent that can help us all. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Next person to speak, please. Up in front. Okay, come on back to the mic.
I promise this is my last one. I have several, but.
That's okay. Let's hear them.
Could you tell me, or if anyone is here that can tell me, as far as the flooding in this area? We have a great amount of flooding. Actually, right here in Uri Drive area where we are, I can actually take a sailboat and just actually push my way through the water. And there's nothing have been done for years and years about that. They tell us that they put a tank up here on Clyde Finn Parkway to make it flow better and to clean the ditches. And I understand that the residents and the constituents throw things in the ditches that they shouldn't. But when it floods, it also takes their bikes, their couches, I mean, things that I actually see floating that goes through the ditch. So is there anything in place to help with the flooding over here? Because it's actually really, really bad.
Flooding on Uri Drive. Thank you.
Don't leave for alignment because I have a question. Okay. I know there's a lot of issues like at Uri and East Washington. Are you talking about in the neighborhood or just on Uri?
The neighborhood.
Okay.
Actually, myself.
Okay,
As a matter of fact, that's why I can feel so personal about it.
Okay, we right behind you there. The two gentlemen who can wave at you right now are from Public Works. One of them's with the city engineer's office. Before you leave, tell them exactly where we would be talking about, so we can try to figure out if what we need to do is a project or if what we need to do is do real maintenance.
Yeah, because actually it's bad because it's actually where I'm gonna give my grandchildren, for instance. I have to put them up on the cabinet, almost the refrigerator when it floods. And I call the fire department and they tell me it's nothing they can do until the water rescinds. By that time, anything could have been happening if the water never stops flowing.
Okay, are you getting water in your house?
Yes.
Okay. Please give me, but tell them the address if you would.
Okay, I will.
What's your address?
314 East Boulevard.
East Boulevard, okay.
It's right off of Uri, right over here.
Okay, let's see, 314, is that on which side of?
It's on the other side of Uri.
On the other side.
And then it's over there. We have several in here. I don't know if they'll say anything, but there's flood as well.
That's where the little ditch is that runs right parallel to Uri.
It is.
That one's been a mess for a long time.
Yes, it is.
I know we talked last week about we're apparently growing a crop of willow trees in the part down there by where the building goes under. We will make sure we get all that cleaned out because they say it's gonna rain a bunch this winter.
Yes, and that's why I'm asking because, actually I'm pleading because it's really horrible. And actually I can applaud the city and Councilman Brooks. He helped, I called him And he had them to come out and clean the bushes and the weeds and the trees that was taller than my house out of the ditch that was actually on the city's side. So that did happen.
How often have you flooded?
Well, it's been for years. But if we have, let me give you an example. If we have a hard rain for about 10, 15 minutes, I'm flooding. My yard is covered like Cross Lake almost. It's from my yard till the end of the street on Hollywood Boulevard. You can see nothing, and you can actually not come out. We have to move cars. If we want to save our cars, we have to go and move those. Anything that's outside, it's just that bad.
Okay, please, before you leave, talk to them, because between the maintenance folks and the engineering folks, I don't know what we can do, because I know that's been a problem in that whole area
Yeah, it is.
for a long time, because that ditch is pretty small. But please talk to them, and let's see what we can do, okay?
Okay,
You
I will.
You have some other stuff, because you said you had.
I'm gonna let somebody else talk. If they don't, I'll come back.
I
Okay.
promise we'll let you.
All right. Thank you. Next person to speak, please. And again, this is the value of these meetings, is to be able to address some of the things that are happening in the neighborhoods that haven't been addressed to your satisfaction. So who's next to speak? No, this side hasn't. All right, we have a volunteer on this side who's ready to ask a question or make a comment. Good evening. Thank you for about to speak. Your name, please?
My name is Dominique Stevening. My name is Dominique Stinson. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm part of District F, but I also stand with District G, excuse me. And I did read over the city's bond proposal, and I see a lot of work that's pertaining to the infrastructure of the city. However, my concern is what kind of African-American economic development that can go into our African-American communities to better help our younger generation.
You know, one of the things that we're going to be doing is looking at how the things that we put on the priority go out and support as many citizens as possible. We are concerned, of course, about all of our younger people in the community and African American people in the community as well. We have not yet begun, and I don't know that we will specifically look in your question, but in terms of trying to understand what neighborhoods need, that will get us to that point where we're looking at neighborhoods as such and not necessarily the demographics, but what are the needs within neighborhoods. So if you're talking about something that is for support of children, for example, and we heard that just about the spray pads that be here in the park, that's for anyone. That's the park. It needs there. And so we're looking at those kinds of things that support a community that makes it a better city for people within that community. So we're looking specifically at that. But I would welcome, and I think if you would want to share some additional ideas to send to us, if you would send them to Mr. Dark, and you can go on to the city webpage. If you go on the city webpage, you can click to make a recommendation or suggestion to the committee. I'd encourage you to give us more. Let me think about it with you. I'll be more than happy to think about and look at it with you. Okay, Mr. Dark, please.
One of the things that's important to keep young folks around is jobs. And one of the better job programs in the world is a couple of $100 million worth of construction going on. I mean, that's not the only reason to vote for these things, but there's a lot of economic activity that goes on over a 3 or 4 or 5 year period when you do something like this. And you know, that's not a panacea for everything, but it does provide jobs. We have a pretty robust fair share program that provides economic opportunities in the construction world as well. And so there's a lot that goes on when that happens. It's not the magic to keep everybody here, but it does do a lot of good. So just want to say that.
Any follow-up comment you'd like to make?
I'll just be sure to get with you on that email, but is there anything that us as a younger generation, not just specifically little kids, but as far as like my generation,
okay,
anything that we could help with or come forward with besides just my idea alone? Because I do understand jobs is one of the other things, but a lot of a lot of us do not have the resources that
Correct.
we need in order to get this information out there to the others to help with getting jobs or trades or anything of that nature.
That is a concern that the committee has to reach your generation, so that you're not in K-12, you're an adult, and reaching the people that every community is seeking to have. If you look at the city of Tulsa and how they're trying to attract people from outside of the state of Oklahoma in, it's your demographic of your age group that is being sought. So we do want the input. I will tell you, we haven't had very much of your age group for input. We need more, and we would welcome it.
Okay.
Anyone from the committee? It's an important question that she's asking about. Anyone from the committee wish to address it? Okay. Thank you.
One of our committee members, Ms. Sabbath, asked a little bit more information about the Fair Share program. There's a lot of details in it, but the sort of bottom line is that years ago, and I don't know if it was during Mayor Hightower's administration or if it wasn't, it was pretty close. The feeling was that minority businesses didn't get enough share of the work that goes on. I mean, we spend a lot of money, and not all of it is just paying people. A lot of it is just buying stuff and building things. And so we have tried through the Fair Share program over the years to try to include more folks who are economically disadvantaged normally. The idea is to get them to where, this helps them get started. But a lot of the work you see out in the community now, particularly what you see along the roadways, is being done by minority contractors. But that's not the only place. There's various trades, there are various supply places, and the results have been pretty good. They actually did what they call a disparity study a few years back, and they try to look at kind of how your usage of disadvantaged businesses compares to their availability in the community. And it wasn't perfect, but it was actually pretty good in most cases. So, we're trying there. Again, if you've got a couple of $100 million getting done, there's going to be work for lots of folks. Some of them are going to be businesses that are disadvantaged. Some of them aren't. But if there's a tremendous advantage to having a lot going on versus not. The other thing is that look, I'm not your generation. I have children your generation, but we are trying other things. I mean, trying to get the 50-cent guy in town. My kids still don't understand how I got a picture with him, and they didn't. But government, sometimes we just facilitate what's going on in the private world. So hopefully that will help some too, because if you start looking to government for your entertainment, you're probably in more trouble than you need to be. But I think bottom line, we are trying to do the kind of things that make it attractive for people of all ages and all socioeconomic strata to come here and have a good time.
And that was Ms. Stinson. And I think to directly answer your question, there are resources that are out there. I know they spoke of the Fair Share program, but there are organizations that are locally in town. You've got the Shreveport-Bossier African American Chamber of Commerce. You also have the Greater Shreveport Chamber of Commerce that could point you in the right direction to help get you, to get you whatever's needed, the certifications or whatnot, to where you can then go to the Fair Share program and bid on some of these jobs, as well as to bring in different change to see what it is that you desire. After the meeting, we can exchange some information. I see Dr. Magna, who's here from the Greater Shreveport Chamber, as well as Mr. Moore. Either one of us could point you in the right direction, or at least assist in getting you the right resources that you may need.
Thank you. And thank you for your question. Next person to ask a question, please. Up in front.
How y'all doing? My
Good,
name is
thank you.
Delia Greggs, and I'm a resident of Concordia Place. That was a newly subdivision put over here in 2010. And it's like we're having major issues since day one. It's flooding. We can't get the lights repaired. The lights are not with SWEPCO, and when you call community development, they tell you that they've been done, but I had to send a video from my camera showing that since last year, when we reported that our lights are out, the lights have not been repaired. We have issues with the gate. One of the residents passed away recently. 2 nights in a row, they had to have paramedics come out, and they had problems getting inside the gate. The gate might work today, and then it doesn't work. I have requested that the remote be updated, update the telephone numbers and different things, and this all is it's an ongoing situation with the community development. We have major flooding in there that was supposed to be addressed when they did phase 2. Phase 2 never occurred. So then at that point, they were done with phase 1. On the side of my house, it keeps eroding, and so I have to try to pack it with different things to keep the land to stay intact. I didn't request it. If they give me dirt, I get somebody to come out and spread the dirt. So I just need some clarification on how we get help in Concordia Place.
Mr. Dark.
Just want to be sure, what street in Concordia do you live on?
I live on Concordia.
Oh, on Concordia. Okay.
It's only 2 streets. I think
It's a gated subdivision
it's
right
the
here off
brand
of
new
East.
subdivision.
Okay, are the streets public? Just want to be sure. I mean, are they private streets or public streets?
It's supposed to be public.
Okay, all right. Again, the gentleman behind you can help you with the flooding part. I don't know anything about what exactly your issue is, but I know what I think it is.
Well, in
which
the
is-
future, in the past, that's what they told us, that they was gonna come out and do different things to stop all that flooding. And then somebody had said that since it was our property, they couldn't come on private property. So one of my neighbors, she paid and did everything herself. She did some kind of little trench and buried stuff, so her water runs out onto the street now.
Okay, when you say you have flooding, is it flooding in the houses or is it flooding in the
It's
street?
flooding on the outside of the houses.
So in the yard, but not
And
yet
then
in the
like
house?
2 of the houses, it's a big hill behind the 2 houses. And so some kind of way, I don't know who purchased the property behind them, but they done built 3 houses up on this hill. But when it rains, the water is coming down and it's causing damage to the back of their houses.
Okay, well, Mr. Norman can visit with you afterwards and maybe get a little more information, but we can definitely send somebody out and see what's going on. I mean, because clearly that's a mess and it doesn't need to continue.
Okay, if we start in terms
Identify
of,
yourself, please, sir.
Craig Lee,
Yes,
District.
I know who you are, but for the audience, so everyone knows.
Yeah, District B. First off, how will the bond issue be packaged? Will it be one up and down vote, or will it be packaged in different components?
I expect that there will be, as in past bonds, package that came forward, that'll be set up in 2, 3, possibly 4 different options for voters for what they would do. I can go back to tell you that in 2011, under Mayor Glover, there were 3 propositions. It was
Yeah.
water and sewer, police, fire, and SPAR, streets and drainage. In 2019, under Mayor Perkins, the first one that all 3 propositions failed, it was water and sewer, police, fire, and SPAR, streets and drainage, same as for Mayor Glover. In 2021, it was a little different. You might recall, there were 5 propositions. There were public safety, which is the only one that passed. There were 4 that did not pass. They were close, but did not pass. Broadband internet, water, sewer, drainage, streets, parks and recreation. So there were 5 propositions in 2021. We have not yet gotten to the point of talking about how many propositions there would be or what would be the makeup of the propositions. But we welcome your suggestion.
That's where a lot of the politics come in. So that's going to make a big difference in terms of a lot of these things getting done, because if people can just cherry pick what they want, that now leaves a lot of the main things that would be left out. So that's something that to be considered. Next question. I'm just going to go through a couple of these because I have questions on them. On the public safety, police substations, where would those be, the $5 million?
Chief Smith might need to help me here, but right now, the voters approved in 2021 for 3 substations. Turns out there was not enough money for 3 substations. We think we can do 2 with what we have, and then the third one is what we're gonna be asking for. But there's one gonna be on North Market on land that was donated by the North Shreveport Business Association. It used to be a galvanizing place, kind of where Daisy Day Florist was. The second one is gonna be on Monkhouse, or just off Monkhouse in what was property once owned by the Foremost Dairy people.
Yeah.
And the third one, we're still looking for a site for, but the likelihood is somewhere in the Line Avenue area. That seems to be they thought they had a site on some land or some property that SWEPCO owned, and turned out SWEPCO wasn't nearly as interested in selling as we thought they might be, for a reasonable price. So that, we would still be looking for a second site, or for a site for that one, but the intent is that there'd be fully 3.
So the $5 million would be for the acquisition and construction at those places?
The general theory seems to be that it's gonna take about $9.5 million to do the 3, counting land acquisition for the third one and a building for the third one, and to build the ones that we already have voted. That's the one thing we hated about this deal, because this is the one thing that's been voted on once, and we gotta come back and ask again.
Exactly.
But nobody did even a remotely decent estimate on what those were gonna cost in 2021, and I think Chief Smith can vouch for that, is that there just wasn't any real good number pulled out, and we're trying to get a better one, which is why there's a second
So
ask.
we have money already in escrow, and this will,
We have money from the 2021
Yeah,
bond issue.
exactly.
$4.5 million, and
And this will go
we
with-
will start with whichever one of those 2 is ready first, and get them going. We're just not absolutely sure we can finish the second one for the 4.5 we have, so we're trying to work on that. Depends on how the bids come in.
okay, fire station renovations, where would those be?
Fire station renovations,
Fire station renovations.
Shelley, let's see, who's here from fire tonight? Do you know, or would you like us to try it on? I have an idea, so. Okay, you need to go where the mic is, okay?
As you see, there are 3 stations on there for building, Station 3, 16, and 11. The additional $3 million in renovations, I believe that it shows on there, is for any station that has not had renovations conducted prior to now, and those that have not been rebuilt or relocated.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the things I saw, okay, he's handing it to me. It looks like, renovations. Looks like East Stoner, David Rains, Wilkinson, and Ellerby are the first 4, and then we'll see how the money goes after that. Several of the others have been renovated already, and obviously, like he said, there's 3 that are on this proposal to completely start over on. Did it answer your question, Mr. Lee? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Lee, that was,
Yes, good evening. Yes, Stephen Jackson. I guess I'm looking
glad
at
to have you
this.
here, sir.
Thank you all for coming to Stony Hill. I guess Highland is sharing a meeting with the group as well. My concern is, as I look at the list, there's a lot of broad ambiguity here. And we're asking citizens in Stony Hill and across this city to support this. And when I look at things like streets, it says neighborhood street reconstruction, 25 million, collector and arterial street reconstruction, 25 million.
So those are plug numbers that we put in, so we would have the dollars represented in terms of what we'd be looking at. But that's what this meeting is
Right.
for, and others, is to get more specificity. That's why we mentioned as we started this evening, we're gonna be going out on a bus tour into the community as a committee to
Right.
look at some of the priorities there. So the goal, and I'll let Mr. Dark speak to it, but the goal is to have more specificity than simply that. That's simply a holding number,
Right.
and we're gonna be working for it, and we haven't decided whether it's 25 million, 30 million, and it may be that it'll be disproportionate in terms of which council district has more. There might be more in District A than there would be in District D, where I live, for example.
I
That could be
know
possible.
thank you, Dr. Clark. I know from coming to the Stony Hill Neighborhood Association meetings every month. I come here every month. And so we have flooding issues, we have street issues that need to be addressed specifically in Stony Hill. And I think the problem when you don't get specific, and I know there's this whole, we don't want to get into picking and choosing, but when you don't get specific, I think that opens the door for politics to run the show. And so if you're a council member, you got to start with your council member, and if your council member can support it, then you might have a fighting chance. But then your council member has to go get 3 or 4 other votes to support it, and then they might, and so I think before it goes to the voters, I think there needs to be some specificity with regards to what streets will be in, what streets will be out. Because if you're gonna, I know talking to the folks in Stony Hill, I think they have an appetite to see more Stony Hill, even with the parks issue. There's a desire to see more recreational things in Stony Hill as well as the flooding on the sort of east or west side of Uri Drive. There's a lot of flooding issues. I mean, just anytime there's a torrential rain for a couple of minutes, you have almost a small pond, and I believe in Miss Jackson's yard, and a lake in certain folks' yard, and that's symptomatic of inadequate drainage, sewer and drainage issues. Now, I don't know if they just need to be cleaned out or whatever, but the last 3 or 4 rain events, I have seen videos, I've come over, and you can't even put a truck through there. I think one time the fire department called, there was an emergency issue, and the fire department, the medic said, we can't get through there, or we not coming through there until it recedes. And so what if that was a life or death situation? And so those are the issues that have been constant in Stony Hill. And I think the folks have been told bond issue after bond issue after bond issue that we're going to address your needs, and those needs never appear. It always ends up sort of a top line dollar, and it's just listed as a broad category, and there's nothing specific in it. And so that's just my...
Okay, let me ask Mr. Darden to speak, but let me say this before he speaks. We do know that by what we have seen and heard, not only in the community meetings but otherwise, that there are more street issues out there, there's more flooding issues out there that can possibly be done in this one bond issue, since we haven't had a comprehensive bond issue package passed since back in Mayor Glover's in 2011. And so I don't say that to discount what you're saying, because I think that's one of the things Mr. Dark and I were talking just this afternoon and planning for this evening about specificity of streets as we can, but whether we can do it completely is another matter.
Mr. Jackson, thank you for your comments. Commissioner, you're still Mr. too. But the hardest part of putting a bond issue together in Shreveport, Louisiana right now is coming up with a list of streets that is representative of the need, that is representative of the area around town. We deliberately, when we put this first list together, did not list a lot of individual streets because we were kind of waiting to see what the community would say. We've got the city engineer's office working. They actually have a pavement management thing where they have a truck that goes out and basically can tell you on a numerical scale from 0 being the worst street you've ever seen to 100 being perfect, and it's not a perfect tool, but it can give you an idea. If you see red on the map, red is bad, and we got a lot of red. Right. And what we're trying to do is to do a combination of things where some of the streets that carry a lot of traffic that are red get addressed, but also some of the neighborhood streets get addressed. And we heard a lot of that up in MLK last week. We've heard a lot of it tonight. We're going to try to come up with a package that's partly collectors and arterials, that's partly neighborhood streets, and try to do that within, the number is likely to be bigger than the ones you're looking at there. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that the committee's going to do on their tour, we're going to take them to some of the streets in various neighborhoods and say, okay, look at this one versus look at some of the others. Try to give us, your own thoughts on what you think. Is this one worse? Is that one worse? But we can't go to all 500 streets that need trouble.
No, I understand, I get it, but I think one of the things, because I was on one of the tours we did with Mayor Glover, and there's a street just on the other side of Happy Bellies that was a brand new concrete street. And I think you kind of walked right into the point that I'm trying to make about the pavement management system is I think we need to make sure that there's equity in that pavement management system, because if you don't emphasize equity, that street that was on the other end of Happy Bellies, like it's right opposite of that street that you turn on when you're turning into Happy Bellies parking lot. That street was graded, I believe, D or F by the pavement management system. But from the eyes, it looks like a brand new concrete paved street, whereas you had a street in the MLK area that was completely falling apart. And it just because it didn't have the level of traffic on it, it was graded like a B or something. And so that's what I'm talking about. The equity of it is, I think we might need to take a look at what that pavement management system is really gathering, the data that it's gathering, how it's coming up to those grades, because there's a disparity there, and you will have a lot of inner city neighborhoods that will end up getting looked over just using that system. Now, I don't know if they made changes to it, but the process when we did it, and that council, I don't know if the council has revisited, but that process did not have a lot of equity in it.
I will tell you, I spent a couple of hours up in MLK, I guess last week one day, trying to drive the red ones, and there are plenty of them. And unfortunately, you can go a lot of other neighborhoods and have some of the same issues. You got more of them in one place than in MLK probably than you do anywhere else in town. But there's a lot of them. There's a lot of red on those maps. We're trying to work our way through, because we can't give them a list of $500 million worth of streets when we might have, somewhere between 75 and 125 to do. We're trying to get the worst ones, and then we start having to ask ourselves, and we've not talked to them about it at all, is, the street that only has 5 houses and 50 cars a day, is it going to, if it takes the same money as the one that has, where through street where people go on, how do you balance that? Because you can't just abandon the people on the little neighborhood street, but you got to, and that's what we're trying to do, is try to come up with a balance of that, and then try to balance it within, because as like Mr. Clark said, there are districts where the worst street in the district would be considered pretty darn good in other places in town. And we're trying to balance that, but on the other hand, some of those folks, we'd like them to vote for this thing. So you balance a little of that out, and you can talk about that being politics, but politics is how stuff gets done. You know that from where you are.
Well, you hit the nail right.
I think we understand the problem, how we're going to end up with it. I really think it's going to be fairly easy for the committee to prioritize the stuff that's not streets, and harder than you can imagine to prioritize the rest of them, because there's just a lot out there, and we're trying to find ways to present it to them, ways to say, here's what we think the worst 20 streets are in that district, and so let's go look at a few of them and try to see how it works. It's not going to be perfect. Everybody who gets left out is not going to be happy, and again, because they recommend it is not necessarily going to be final. There's 7 council members who are going to have their own input beyond that, so that's also a political process, but we're trying to put the big picture out there to the committee, who then can make their best choices and then give the council their best input. So I think we're going to get there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ronald Cothran, District 10. As I look at these projects, and it concerned me particularly a few minutes ago when Craig was talking about these substations. A few years ago, we voted for 3 substations. We voted for 3 substations. And the thing is, again, what you're telling me today, based on some inaccurate numbers, we're talking about 2. But that's not what I voted for. That's not what my constituents voted for neither. And the thing is, when we go forward, we're talking about bond proposals and people voting again. As I sit here now, I'm second-guessing some things, truly second-guessing some things. And when I look at this, as I stated before, 3 versus 2, where are the 2 going to be? It makes sense, and I do understand when land and property is given to you, you probably go there first. I get that. But between the other 2 sites that was promised to the citizens, what's going to happen next? In addition to that, and it's not on this particular piece of paper, but I look at parks. Cedar Grove, under a previous administration, actually cemented a swimming pool in a park. And to this day, I'm yet to understand that. Again, it's not on this, and it's maybe not projected, but please help me understand, how do you cement a swimming pool in an area that's needed, that's at A.B. Palmer? And also help me understand and tell citizens, you voted for 3, you're gonna only get 2, so you have to vote again to get the 3rd that was promised to you.
So let me reiterate something that Mr. Dark said, because I think that in all due respect to Mayor Perkins, that it was his administration had a belief that the SWEPCO building that is on Line Avenue, south of Piermont, not to 70th, somewhat in the vicinity of Superior's Mexican restaurant there, that facility might become available for the city at a very low price for the city to acquire to be a substation. But the corporate of SWEPCO is in Ohio, AP Corporation, and they chose not to make it available to the city. And so that was, I think, a good faith belief that that was going to be the 3rd, and that didn't happen. And that was not in control of the city. And so I do understand why you would come and ask, how come we're going to pay again? And the answer is because there was not put before the public in 2021 what could have been for all 3 that was going to be needed. And so that's why we're having, as a committee, to consider that. So, Mr. Darko.
The one other thing, Councilman, that's happened, and it's happened on a lot of projects, not just ours. I suspect that $4.5 million was an estimate that was done pre-COVID construction. You know, one of the things that's pretty obvious if you take bids now is that stuff you used to could do for $100,000 is $250 now in some cases. And that's building construction is particularly that way right now. And, you know, look, we hate having to come back and explain substations to you. It would have been a lot simpler to have been able to build them. But the bottom line is they didn't, the amount of money that was voted in 2021 isn't enough. We either stop at 2 and maybe only barely build the second one, or we ask you again. And we don't, you know, I'd rather not, but the honest truth is if you want 3, that's how it's gonna happen. So. Oh, Shelley, you wanna talk about swimming pool?
Sure. I also will address the substations. So in the last bond issue, when we submitted our pricing for substations, we submitted $3 million. They were cut. Our estimating was at 3. The committee chose to cut those in half to make the bond smaller. They were also voted, the chief talked about where those were gonna be. One was gonna be north, he always talked about Foremost, and somewhere on Line Avenue. So we were trying to put them where we told you we would put them in the last bond issue, but it was not due to the way we estimated. It was due to that they just said, we gotta make the bond issue smaller. We went in there and they cut things in half. We have expressed in our meetings with the CAO that if we decide to cut a project, instead of cutting funding, cut the entire project. Because if you cut the funding, we end up exactly where we are right now.
And the committee has taken the same approach, that we want to know what would be the cost of completion. And because Mr. Dark said at the beginning of the meeting that some of the projects will not occur till 2, 3, 4 years out, then having an idea of when those will occur to see whether or not we have sufficient funds there or not. We do not want to be a part of that. The Knight Street is the remaining major project of the 2011 bond issue. There was not enough money in that bond issue to cover it from the get-go, it turns out. So we are cognizant of that. I think every committee member here would say the same thing, that we look at each other and we say, you know, can we trust this number? We trust the city staff coming before us, but we are continuing to ask for more information. But the point you made about it can't be a political number. We have to make the hard decision once we see what a number is, where to prioritize to put that someplace in the list or not to put it in the list. And it has to be a real number, as real as possible. It has to be.
swimming pool, the A.B. Palmer swimming pool was probably filled in 10 or 12 years ago. It was filled in because, quite honestly, it was in disrepair. And the summer before, we had in July of that year, when we keep these numbers, we had 8 swims. That could be one guy swimming 8 times, 2 children swimming 4 times. We don't know. But because it was not being used, and what the community said to us at that time is the spray ground would be fine to replace it with. And that's what we did. We are right now our newest pool was built in the 70s. So all of our pools that are in deplorable condition, you'll see those on the bond issue to repair. A.B. Palmer was just not quite frankly, it was not being used at the time. And that's why we did what we did. It was basic dollars and cents thing at the time.
I wasn't here at 12, the thing is, that's all I ever hear when I
Oh.
go to the meeting.
Yes.
Swimming pool. So that's why I brought it up.
Thank you for bringing it up. Give us an opportunity.
Thank you for the clarification on the bond issue as well. I appreciate that.
Okay. I'm up again.
You got rested and you're ready
No,
to go
I
again?
got rested and I got a little breath.
Okay.
What my question is, what do we need to do? I'm speaking of Stony Hill now. What does Stony Hill need to do to become a priority as far as the flooding? Because if I can remember right, as long as I can remember when I was in elementary school, we have had this same, and I'm 55, I don't mean this, I'm not ashamed to tell you how old I am right now. But I was in elementary school, and we had that same issue with flooding over here in Stony Hill. And nothing has been done. So what do we need to do, I'm asking, to become a priority for that?
So I think one of the things you need to do, you've been doing, you're doing it here this evening with us.
Okay.
The other thing is I encourage for neighborhood associations and individuals as both to give input into the city otherwise in terms of particular for streets. Which streets in particular are ones that we need to address? When we were up at Susla, we had several individuals who said, I have a list for you. Whether or not that list is something that can be done or not completed by us or not, I don't know, but it's a list that we certainly will be looking at, and Mr. Dark and his team are looking at it. So I would encourage that if you have a list of streets and drainage problems, that you provide it to us. Because that's what we need. We need to know what it is within the community that needs our attention.
And I'm glad you said that, because we've provided those streets to everybody that comes here and that say they're gonna do something about it or come to watch or to look or this. Now, I will grant they did come and clean the drainage of the ditch out, but I've only seen that once. But we'll be glad to, because I can definitely have some of them here that can definitely give you the streets tonight. We'll give you that list again.
Great.
I've even sent pictures, videos, as Mr. Jackson said, I've given them to the council people and everybody, but I just want to make sure, what else do we need to do?
So as Mr. Dark said at the beginning, some of the things that are going to be maintenance, we're not going to be able to do. But if there are things that are chronic problems that create that maintenance can't fix, then that becomes a different kind of a problem. That's back to us again to consider if we need to be looking at something in a recommendation. So that helps us to at least to understand what your concern is, and that's why Mr. Dark encouraged you to be to the gentleman behind you so that they can help with this process as well to understand, okay, have we gone beyond the problems of the need of continuous repair so that we have a chronic problem that needs to have a much bigger fix to it, okay? That's what we need to understand. Okay. And so you'll help us by doing that.
Yeah, and several more contacts if we can, because when we get one contact, sometimes we don't get done what we need to do, and then maybe we need to talk to somebody else, but it somehow gets dropped.
Okay, your last name was Jackson, right?
It is.
Is all the flooding you see on the other side of Uri from here, or what? Please let us know what you got over here, because the ditch along Uri, we know about that one, and it's a bear to try to deal with, but at least we know where that is.
And
if you got stuff on this side, please let us know.
Yeah, we have back here the street. I mean, I'll get them to you. I get
Please, that's what we need.
Okay. Let's do this real easy. I'm gonna make it easy.
Okay.
City paid this thing.
All right, that's all right.
All right,
Thank you.
good. Again, that's one of the things we're hoping to accomplish in these community meetings, is to address things that have been problems over time. And so, again, thank you for coming forward. Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Your name,
and
please.
I apologize for being late. My name is Frankie Canty, and I live here in the Stony Hill community. And I just wanted to kind of piggyback here for Ms. Rachel. C.E. Galloway was redone. It was a perfect street, but it was redone. And when it was redone, they closed off all of the drainage ditches, only left 2. They closed them up. I mean, just cemented them up. So there's only 2 drainage ditches on C.E. Galloway. So I just wanted to make sure that you know about that. I was here, I have a friend from here out in Chicago, and we was riding around the city of Shreveport. And I don't know if you all talked about it before I came, but my concern is coming into Shreveport. I left here for 30 years and I come back, and I've been back for a while now. But it's just kind of dismay to me to drive into Shreveport, and it's not clean. And you have people that working on the I-20, and you have them picking up bags, and they, may have a few bags, but they leave the bags there, pick the people up. If you're gonna pick up trash, then they need to be able to pick up the trash, put the trash on the bag, on the truck. Don't go back a month later when the dogs are gone through. But I just find it a blight, just driving into Shreveport and coming down, especially the major areas where we have to come. Uri Drive, coming through Stony Hill area. It needs to be cut. I mean, people need to know how to do things. If these workers don't know how to do it, they need to be trained how to do it. So those are my concerns. I think that was
I will tell you, we heard some of that on Tuesday night when we were at Huntington High School, and about the coming into Shreveport from Texas and making the first stops off of as you get into the area of West Shreveport as well. So I think those are things that we're cognizant of. And also you'll see on the list about the airport in Monkhouse, what you see as you come out. That was improved a number of years ago. I can remember it was improved and looked quite nice, but it doesn't now. And it needs to be addressed again, and so it's why it's on the list. Whether it makes it to the final, we'll see. But it's those kinds of things that help in terms of having the quality of life being addressed in different ways that make you feel proud of being a citizen of Shreveport.
I apologize.
Please.
There's one other concern, is when you have a house in the neighborhood that is just blight. It really needs to be torn down. How do you go about, what do you need to do? Because at the corner of C.E. Galloway and Olive Street, the family or the person who owns the house, they live in California somewhere. They have somebody here who call themselves cleaning, but it is a disaster. So what do you do about the blight with people with houses that they won't take care of their property?
My eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Do we have anybody from Property Standards? Yes, sir. Mr. Harris works, he's the Assistant Director of Property Standards. Don't let him leave without telling him everything you need to tell him, okay? Because that gentleman with the blue shirt on. Okay, well, corner him. He's not on the clock tonight. He can stay and listen to you as long as he needs to.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Mr. Lee, you have wait for a mic, it's coming to you.
Okay, under sewer, we have lift station generators, $10 million. How many generators? Describe that. How many stations?
Mr. Daniel, can you help him with that? I know there's several, I just don't know how many.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how many.
I want to say 6.
Yeah. They're the 5 largest lift stations that we have that when they go down, we have serious issues. So we want to put generators there. Some of the smaller lift stations, we can use vacuum trucks and tanks or something like that to pick them up. Brandon knows the 5 largest lift stations. He's dying to tell you.
Well,
They affect in a lot of communities. That's why there's Wallace lift station, which is way out Kingston, and of course you've got Lucas Outfall, which is right on Uri, and you've got Querby's, Broadmoor, and then I'm missing one. Hold on.
Cedar Grove.
Cedar Grove. And those are the ones where most all of the other lift stations, they feed to those main, then feed to the plant. And so when those go down, it's just a chain reaction. So if we're able to put generators there, like Mr. Daniel did say, that we can put in bypass pumps in order in a short term to keep the other stations moving.
So now, Brandon, I know we're not talking about the generators that you buy at Lowe's.
No.
These are very large.
So describe the generators.
These will be very large lift stations, almost if you were like you built a commercial building. The power went and there was a delay in power, they would automatically come on and they would be able to run large pumps. So therefore, that's the cost you see there. You know, these pumps, move millions of gallons of sewage and take a lot of electricity. So they would be able to run. Now, depending on the way they're able to engineer, they may not be able to run, say, all 4 large at one time because we don't run all 4 at one time. We may only run 2 to 3 at one time, but they will be able to handle the load for that lift station.
Yeah, cool. And how many generators would that be?
5.
That's all I have. Under parks, Shelby. Tennis upgrades, what parks, and Cargill Park improvements, and the park improvements and upgrades.
So tennis includes pickleball too, so you'll have tennis, pickleball.
Where?
So, we just finished A.B. Palmer, all the tennis courts there. They would like to have one of those that could also be pickleball also. Mamie Hicks, when we met with that community, they want to keep one tennis court, turn the other one into pickleball. AC Steer would get a new tennis court. You would get more pickleball at Southern Hills so that we can host tournaments there. They already have 6. We'd add 6 more. That way they can host tournaments, regional pickleball tournaments. Talking about Airport Park, taking one that we have there, so it can be both. So we can make a tennis court be both pickleball and tennis, so it's kind of all over the city. Some of those park improvements, some of them we heard the other night would be to do some things at Bill Cockrell. They need additional parking, because you've used it before and you know that the parking. They also talked about a trail. I can't remember what else we have on there right off the top of my head, but there's some playground equipment. Ford Park needs some of the pavilions replaced. It's to do those small projects that cost a lot of money that aren't in our budget, but one of them is Ford Park. That's probably one of the biggest one. And then we have some bathroom upgrades at Columbia and some ADA issues that we have to address at Columbia Park. I think that's the majority of the ones in there.
Good job.
And then the Cargill Park.
Cargill, so soccer, is growing, so is just the need for rectangle fields. You can do lacrosse, we can do rugby, we can do our youth football, all of those things. So we'd like to turf some more fields at Cargill so that we can use them all the time for all kinds of different rectangular field activities. And it's all of those. It also does some funding for BMX. I don't know how many of you know, we have a huge BMX population. We've had a BMX track at Cargill forever, and this would do some improvements there to help that. And they draw a lot of people in from, there's 5 BMX tracks in the state. We're one of those 5 that people rotate to. So it'd do some improvements for bathrooms and concessions from them, but the rest of it's mainly turf.
So we're now making it a multi-purpose park versus this.
Right. And that's one of the things, through this, Sam's been part of it. We've been talking about what happens at Cargill, what can we do there. Rugby's, but we've been talking with the rugby group because they could do more tournaments if they had more space. Right now, they're very limited at AC Steer to really one full-size rugby field. And if we could figure out how to make these multi-purpose fields, we could do a lot more out there and keep it active.
Thank you. Anyone else to ask a question of us this evening? All right, I'm going to give you a chance to come back. We have 2 minutes when I come back to have a chance if you have a question. I'm going to come to my panel here of my committee members. Thank you again for showing up here in such strong numbers and your interest for being here. You've heard a lot of different things. Does anyone have anything they would like to talk about? Unfortunately, you've heard me talking all the time. Anyone here have anything they would like to come to the podium to speak to the audience with, or to make a clarification of anything that I have said from the point of view of the committee that you'd like to have addressed? Any?
Yeah, I would say take advantage of on the city's page, take advantage of that to where if there's some concerns that you think of in the middle of the night, or you know someone who did make it here, go to the city's website, and Mr. Dark will give you the exact site.
He won't respond in the middle of the night, but he...
Yeah. And they come directly to Mr. Dark. So just go to the city site and voice those concerns, because there's going to be some things that you think of 2 days later, or you know of some folks who may have some concerns. So you're able to go there and put those things there so we can further address them at our next assembly.
Thank you. Mr. Dark.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is if you Google City of Shreveport website, it's shreveportla.gov, and there's a fairly prominent icon on there, you know, to give your input on, and it'll be up for probably another couple of weeks. But they come to me and I read them, and so far I've answered everybody except the person who told me their email was Obama@gmail, because I think they were kind of fooling with us. But I do want to say something that they won't say. We have been extraordinarily fortunate with the people that ended up on this Capital Improvements Committee. I've been around citizen groups, and sometimes you can't find them after the first meeting. These folks, you know, this is a pretty average crowd. I mean, there's 20 of them all together, and they've rotated around, but I don't think we've had less than 12 or 13 of them at any of these 4 meetings. And that is remarkable in these days and times, and you should be extraordinarily proud of the folks that your council members gave us as nominees, people the mayor selected. This process is going to work because they're interested, and they pay attention, and they ask real hard questions, and sometimes harder than we wish we had to answer. But it really does say a lot, and I just want to say thank you to the ones that are here and to the ones that aren't as well, because we've been very fortunate.
Thank you, Mr. Dark. One of the things that's very important, we're invested in this. The vast majority of the people on this committee are lifelong residents. They maybe went to college, maybe had some career opportunities that they took them away, and then they came back. But this committee, by and far, is made up of people who have lived here, or else people who have come in and have adopted this city as their city where they live and want to live. And so we're vested in trying to do the right thing. I know that everyone says, sure, do the right thing, but we're really trying to do that, to get an understanding. And so I thank you on behalf of the committee that you chose to come out here this evening. I encourage you to do what Mr. Dark said, to go ahead and respond, but my fellow colleagues to come and respond, do that. We listen, I assure you, we're going to be listening, and we'll see what we do as we keep working on this. We know we have a lot of work to do. We're committed to doing it. Ultimately, it's a city council. And as I said at the outset tonight, Mayor Arsenault made it very clear to us that it's the city council that ultimately decide what will be the priorities that will go before the voters, and what it will be that you, the voter, have a choice of voting or not voting on. But we want to make it so that we can help the city council members in that process. But it's the city council ultimately has the responsibility for the city of Shreveport. And we hope that they will be happy with the amount of work we've done, which will reflect your input. So thank you for coming here. Thank you very much. Please.
Clearly, I may have missed this. Is the 340 million, is that the ceiling, is that a floor, like a starting point?
That's not a starting point for sure. And I would say that the ceiling would be, from my point of view, with looking at it, would not be at 350. I'm not sure that the taxpayers are prepared to want to deal with 350 million. But that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. And
you see 350 million as sort of the ceiling?
I personally do, but again, that has to be, I think it's going to be lower than 350. But I think it'll be much lower, matter of fact. But 350 was to get the ideas there. I would say 250, if you're looking, is probably more. And again, we haven't made that decision. We need the input from Mayor Arsenault and from Mr. Dark, but I don't believe 350 will be close to that number. I do not. Thank you for coming this evening. Again, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.